Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos.
The main character, after dying inside of his previous life, he gets reborn inside of Sonic, and he is reborn as Greninja from Pokemon. What is Greninja gonna do inside of Sonic?
Against his chest with every swing, but his voice stayed steady. We are moving away from the disposal chute. Ren glanced down. The chute vanished behind them, a square mouth swallowing the catwalk they had been standing on moments ago. Ahead, the cable track ran across the ceiling toward the far side of the assembly chamber. Robot arms worked below, installing legs, armor plates, lens clusters, and guide rail panels onto unfinished frames. The cable was not an escape route. It was a parts carrier. Ren saw the hook at the end of the line, where the cable dipped toward another station. It would lower them directly into a calibration pit. Of course it would. Eggman's voice returned through the overhead speakers, too pleased. You know, this is why I adore automated systems. Even intruders become cargo if they grab the correct cable. Ren could not write while hanging. He settled for baring his teeth at the nearest camera. Tails looked down and swallowed. Calibration pit ahead. Ren nodded once. Do we have a plan? Ren looked around. Ceiling track, moving cable, assembly arms, half-built machines, far wall with maintenance lights, a row of coolant pipes running above the calibration pit. Coolant. Liquid. Not much, but enough. Ren clicked twice and pointed with his chin. Tails followed the motion, the pipes. Ren nodded. You want to cut them before we drop? Ren nodded again. Tails shifted carefully, freeing one hand to reach his tool belt. If you swing me closer, I can loosen the nearest joint. Ren looked at him. Tails gave a strained smile. No grabbing without warning, right? This is me giving warning. Ren huffed through his nose. Trust was a strange thing. Sometimes it was Tails not touching him without asking. Sometimes it was Ren swinging the fox toward a pipe 20 feet above a floor full of machines. He bent his knees, waited for the cable to jolt, and used the motion to swing Tails outward. Tails reached. Missed. The cable dragged them closer to the pit. Ren swung again, harder. Tails's tool caught the pipe joint. Got it. The joint squealed. A thin spray of coolant burst into the air. Ren felt the moisture before he saw it, a cold mist spreading across his face and hands. His whole body answered. Water. Ren pulled. The coolant stream bent toward his palm, thin and chemical sharp, but usable. He shaped it into a blade as the cable began dipping toward the calibration pit. Below, 3 unfinished capture units raised their heads without heads, lens ports glowing red in their open neck frames. Eggman sounded delighted. Careful, that coolant is not drinking water. Ren did not need to drink it. He cut the cable. For one weightless breath, he and Tails fell. Then Ren threw the coolant blade into the nearest assembly arm. The arm jerked sideways and smashed into another, knocking a half-built unit off its clamps. Ren twisted midair, landed on the falling unit's back, and used it as a platform. Tails hit beside him with a yelp and immediately grabbed the frame. The unit crashed into the calibration pit. The pit's floor lit up in red squares. Guide rails snapped from the walls, trying to align the broken machine. Stun prongs unfolded, foam nozzles armed. Ren kicked Tails clear before the first rail closed. They rolled under a conveyor. The pit attacked the broken unit instead. Rails clamped around its legs. Foam sealed its arms. Stun prongs fired into its armor. The calibration system did exactly what it was built to do, capture and correct the target in the pit. Only the target was not Ren. It was Eggman's own unfinished machine. Tails stared. We keep making his cages catch themselves. Ren would have laughed if his shoulder did not feel like it had fire under the skin. Eggman's voice sharpened. "Stop doing that." Ren crawled to the conveyor edge and pulled Tails with him. Above, the cut cable whipped uselessly along its track. Coolant rained into the pit, making the red floor spark. Tails checked the scanner. There is an exit chute behind the calibration station. It leads to exterior drainage. Ren looked at him. Drainage meant water. Finally. They ran low beneath the conveyor, staying under the line of the assembly arms. Tails fired 2 small pulse charges into the calibration controls as they passed. Ren used the dripping coolant to slice a foam hose and leave it spraying across the floor. Not enough to destroy the whole line. Enough to slow it. Enough to make the next test lie. That mattered more than a clean explosion. Ren understood that now. Eggman loved machines that obeyed exact paths, exact numbers, exact cages. A broken pipe could be replaced. A snapped belt could be welded. But a machine that believed the wrong measurement would keep spreading the mistake until someone found it, and Eggman had built too much of the chamber to trust itself. Tails seemed to realize the same thing. He skidded beside a waist-high terminal, ripped open its side panel, and shoved his scanner's cable into the port. 8 seconds, he said. Ren crouched over him, back to the Fox, eyes on the assembly arms. 3 camera lenses turned toward them. One arm lowered with a fresh clamp. Another swung a welding torch into position. The broken unit in the pit tried to stand again, failed, and dragged itself forward by one unfinished hand. Ren's injured shoulder shook. He wanted to rush the thing. He wanted to break its lens with his fist and make the threat stop being close. Instead, he spat a low warning sound and slapped one wet hand against the floor. The coolant spread under the machines answered. Thin streams ran sideways, guided by tiny motions of his fingers, crossing painted guidelines and pooling under sensor plates. When the clamp came down, its own footing slid. It smashed into the welding arm. Sparks burst across the conveyor shields. Tails yanked the cable free. Done. I fed the station a maintenance delay for every unit with revision 2 hardware. Ren did not know if that meant minutes or hours. He knew it meant breathing room. He grabbed Tails by the back of the vest and pulled him onward just as the terminal behind them flashed red. The exit chute was a round tunnel half covered by a grate. Ren tore the grate loose. Tails slid in first, then stopped. "Drop," he said. Ren looked past him. The chute angled steeply into darkness. Far below, water echoed. Good. Behind them, the calibration pit overloaded. The broken unit thrashed against its own restraints. One guide rail snapped free and whipped across the chamber, cutting through a row of empty armor racks. Eggman's monitor flickered. "You are causing a great deal of unnecessary damage." Ren picked up a broken piece of armor and scratched 3 words into the pit's red-lit floor where the camera could see. "Bad test again." Then he jumped into the chute after Tails. The slide down was fast, wet, and terrible. Ren hit the drainage channel shoulder first, bit back a sound, and rolled into ankle-deep water. Real water. Cold, moving, alive in a way coolant was not. It ran through a stone tunnel under the assembly line, carrying heat and grit away from the machines. Tails splashed beside him. Ow. Ren pushed himself up and scanned the tunnel. Water path, low ceiling, no blue light, no guide rails. For the first time since entering the supply line, the terrain felt like something that might answer him instead of Eggman. The communicator crackled. Sonic's voice came through. "That explosion sounded expensive. Please tell me that was you." Tails coughed, mostly Ren. Ren pressed the communicator and managed a rough, wet croak. Sonic laughed with relief, still taking that as yes. Ren looked down the drainage tunnel. The water flowed away from the assembly chamber, toward a great bright with daylight somewhere far ahead. Not safe. Still moving. And this time, the path was not authored by Eggman. Chapter 24, Drainage Teeth. The water did not lead straight outside. Ren wanted it to. He wanted daylight, trees, clean air, and enough distance from Eggman's assembly chamber that the metal smell stopped crawling inside his nose. Instead, the drainage channel bent left, narrowed, and carried them deeper under the factory floor. The ceiling dropped until Tails had to fold his tails close and walk hunched. Pipes crossed above them like ribs. The water ran around Ren's ankles, cold enough to numb the scratches across his legs, but not deep enough to hide in. Still, it was water. That counted. Ren pressed one palm against the current and listened with more than ears. The flow trembled around hidden grates, pump mouths, and cracks in the stone. His body understood the tunnel before his human mind finished naming it. 3 exits ahead. One was blocked. One smelled like hot oil. One carried air from outside. Ren pointed 2 fingers forward, then right. Tails lifted his scanner, saw the same thing a second later, and nodded. Storm runoff line. It should reach the canyon wall. Should. Ren had learned to dislike that word. Behind them, metal scraped. Both of them froze. The sound came again, slow and patient. Something dragged itself through the chute they had used. Not the broken unit from the calibration pit. That one had been too large. This sound was lighter, smaller, built for tight spaces. Eggman's voice crackled from a speaker somewhere, inside the pipework. I admit the big dramatic units are having a difficult night, he said. So let us try a less dramatic approach. Tails went pale. Drainage crawlers. Ren did not wait for the rest of the explanation. He shoved Tails behind him and sank lower into the water. The first crawler came around the bend on 6 hooked legs. It was narrow, flat, and plated like a metal crab. Its front lens swept the tunnel in quick blue pulses. Instead of a net cannon, it carried a small injector mounted under its body and 2 clamps shaped for ankles. Not for Sonic. For Ren. Eggman had learned again. The crawler launched itself at his injured leg. Ren kicked water into its lens. The splash became a blade halfway through the air. It struck the machine, cracked the glass, and knocked it sideways into the wall. The crawler did not stop. It skittered blind, legs clawing at stone, still trying to reach him by sound. Tails fired a pulse charge. The crawler sparked and folded in half. They are using vibration tracking, Tails said quickly. Every step we take in the channel tells them where we are. Ren looked down at the water. Every step. Fine. Then no honest steps. He grabbed Tails by the vest, ignored the fox's startled squeak, and climbed onto the side pipe. His wet hands found purchase where a normal hand would have slipped. His feet stuck to the stone. Greninja muscle and instinct took over, carrying both of them along the wall above the channel. 2 more crawlers entered below. They followed the current, searching for footfalls that were no longer there. Ren held Tails against the wall with one arm. His shoulder burned so sharply that black spots crowded the edge of his sight. He breathed through his nose and forced himself not to drop. Tails understood. He clipped a small device to the pipe beside Ren's hand. Noise puck, he whispered. Ren blinked at him. Tails gave a tiny, nervous smile. Sonic likes gadgets that make machines look stupid. The puck activated with a rapid tapping sound. The crawlers below snapped toward it. Ren threw himself down. He landed between them in a burst of water. The machines lunged at the false noise. Ren's hands moved first, thought second. One water shuriken cut the front legs off the nearest crawler. His tongue caught the second machine by its rear plating and whipped it into the pipe hard enough to crack the injector mount. No cage. No needle. No property. The thoughts hit in ugly flashes, but he kept them from becoming panic. Tails was here. Sonic was above somewhere, still guarding Clover and the Hollow. This was not the first day in the forest. Ren was not alone under an open sky with no language and no plan. He had a direction. He had water. He had a fox shouting, "Left side." Ren moved before the fourth crawler struck. It dropped from the ceiling, legs spread wide, injector flashing. Ren rolled under it, caught the current with both hands, and pulled. The channel water rose in a sudden sheet. It slammed the crawler upward and pinned it against the low ceiling long enough for Tails to jam a charge into its underside. The blast was small. The crawler fell dead into the channel. The speaker hissed. Eggman no longer sounded amused. "You are becoming inconvenient." Ren stared at the speaker. His throat worked. Words were still hard. The sounds wanted to break into croaks and clicks, but anger pushed shape into them, rough and low. "Good." Tails stared at him. Ren did not have time to feel proud. The drainage pumps started. A deep mechanical thump rolled through the tunnel. The water around Ren's ankles pulled backward, away from the outside air tunnel and toward a black grate opening behind them. Eggman was reversing the flow. Tails grabbed the wall. "If the pumps take us, we get dumped into the coolant reclamation tanks." Ren looked toward the right-hand passage. The storm runoff line was 20 paces away. The water was dragging harder every second. He could fight the current. Tails could not. Ren crouched, put Tails on his back without asking, and launched forward on all fours. The tunnel became a fight against teeth. The reversed current pulled at Ren's legs. The floor pitched under slime-slick water. More small grates snapped open along the walls, each one adding another hungry sideways pull. Tails clung tight and kept one hand locked around Ren's neck, careful not to choke him. 10 paces, Tails gasped. Ren's claws gouged sparks from stone. 5. The biggest grate opened under his right foot. The current took his leg. For one awful second, he was half inside the drain, hip twisted, shoulder screaming, Tails sliding off his back. Ren slammed both hands into the water and formed the strongest shuriken he could manage in the narrow channel. He did not throw it forward. He threw it down. The water shuriken hit the grate and burst outward. The pressure kicked Ren free. It also cracked the grate's frame, and the reversed pump swallowed pieces of its own metal with a grinding roar. Tails grabbed Ren's wrist and pulled with everything he had. Ren stumbled into the storm runoff line. The pull changed at once. Fresh air touched his face. Real air, dusty, canyon warm, carrying pine and sunlight from somewhere outside. They collapsed together in the narrow side tunnel. For several breaths, neither of them moved. Ren listened to the broken pumps rage behind them. The sound was distant now, trapped in the wrong passage, chewing on ruined great pieces and failing to pull them back. The water in the runoff line flowed the proper direction, thin and fast around his knees. Tails rolled onto one elbow and checked Ren's shoulder without grabbing it. "You are bleeding again." Ren glanced at the dark smear running down his arm. "Annoying. Not finished." Tails must have read that on his face because he reached into his pouch and pressed a folded pad into Ren's hand. "Hold that there. I know you hate stopping, but falling over would help Eggman more than us." Ren stared at him. The fox stared back, small, soaked, stubborn. Ren gave in first. He pressed the pad to the wound and let the cold water carry the sting away from his legs. "Thank you," Tails said quietly, like Ren had done him a favor instead of obeying basic sense. Ren huffed. "Maybe that was close enough to your welcome." The communicator crackled. Sonic's voice came through thin but clear. "Tails, Ren, I just saw smoke vent out of the canyon wall. Please tell me that was also you." Tails lay on his back, soaked and shaking. Mostly Ren again. Ren pressed the communicator with one claw. His voice scraped out as a tired croak first. Then, after a breath, one word followed. Out. Sonic went quiet for half a second. When he answered, relief warmed every syllable. Then keep coming. I can see the old runoff mouth from here. Ren looked toward the faint daylight ahead. Not safe yet. Closer. And behind them, Eggman's own pumps screamed around broken metal. Asterisk Chapter 25, Runoff Mouth. Daylight waited at the end of the storm tunnel. Ren could see it as a thin silver line beyond the bend, broken by a grate and trembling with heat from the canyon outside. The air tasted different there. Dust, sun-warmed stone, pine needles, and old rain instead of coolant and burned wires. He wanted to run for it. His body did not. Every step pulled at the wound in his shoulder. His right leg still shook from the pump grate nearly taking it. The folded pad Tails had given him was already dark, pressed under Ren's palm while he moved with the other hand against the wall. Tails walked beside him with his scanner held low. He kept glancing at Ren without saying anything. Ren noticed. Ren huffed. I'm not saying anything, Tails said. Ren looked at him. Tails's ears twitched. Fine, I am thinking several things. That was more honest. The communicator crackled again, before Ren could answer with a croak or gesture. You two still moving? Sonic asked. Tails lifted the communicator. Yes, we can see the runoff mouth. There is a grate blocking it. I see it too, Sonic said. His voice came with wind behind it, close enough to feel real. Bad news. Eggman has 2 flying units circling the canyon rim. Good news. They are looking at me because I am very distracting. Something boomed outside. Sonic laughed. See, extremely distracting. Ren's fingers tightened against the wall. Sonic was outside alone, drawing fire away from the tunnel. Again. Tails must have known what Ren was thinking because he stepped in front of him for half a second. We do not rush straight into their line of sight. We open the grate quietly, check the rim, then move when Sonic pulls them away. Ren stared past him at the daylight. Quiet. Not easy, but possible. They reached the grate. It was not old. Eggman had installed a new locking frame over the storm runoff mouth, black metal bolted into the stone and threaded with yellow sensor wire. Beyond it, the canyon opened in a steep drop toward dry brush and scattered boulders. Far above, Sonic flashed across a ledge in a streak of blue, while 2 red and black hover drones chased him with net cannons. No big revised capture unit. Small watchers instead. Eggman had finally started, using patience. Tails crouched by the lock. If I cut the sensor wire wrong, it alerts the rim drones. Ren pointed to the water running under their feet, then to the metal frame. Tails looked from him to the trickle. Can you carry the signal away? Ren did not know. He crouched anyway. The water in the runoff line was shallow, but it touched the bottom of the grate. Ren spread his fingers into it and pulled carefully, not making a blade this time. A thin film of water climbed over the metal. It slid around the yellow wire, around the screw heads, around the sensor bead where a red light blinked every 2 seconds. Ren could feel the blink through the water. Tiny pulse. Tiny warning. He held the film steady. Tails worked. The fox's tools moved fast, but not carelessly. One clip held the wire. Another bridged the circuit. A third device, smaller than Ren's claw, bit into the sensor bead and started mimicking its pulse. Outside, Sonic shouted, "Hey, metalheads, wrong way." A net burst over the canyon mouth and stuck to the rock above the grate. Dust rained down. Ren did not flinch, but his skin tightened hard enough that the water film almost broke. Tails whispered, "Steady." Ren breathed through his nose. Cage. Net. Not on him. Not on Tails. Not today. The water steadied again. Tails cut the last wire. The red light kept blinking as if nothing had happened. Got it, Tails said. Ren grabbed the grate with both hands. Pain ran up his shoulder so sharply that his vision blurred. He almost let go. Then Sonic shot past outside, deliberately close enough for Ren to see his grin through the bars. Any time, guys. Ren pulled. The bolts groaned. Stone cracked around the frame. Tails wedged a tool under the lower hinge and threw his whole weight against it. Ren pulled again, this time with the tunnel water rising around his arms in a cold spiral. The grate came free. Not quietly. Metal screamed against stone and dropped outward. The rim drones turned. Sonic hit the first one before it finished turning. Blue impact smashed it into the canyon wall, where it burst apart in a shower of parts. The second drone fired its net cannon at the open tunnel. Ren saw the net expand. His body moved before fear could finish. He shoved Tails flat, lifted both hands, and snapped the runoff water upward. The stream became a rotating shield. The net struck it, tangled and spun sideways into the broken grate instead of wrapping around them. Tails fired a pulse charge through the water spray. The charge hit the net cannon. The second drone lurched, smoking. Sonic finished it with a kick that sent it tumbling into the dry brush below. For one heartbeat, the canyon went quiet. Ren climbed out first. Sunlight hit his skin. Warm stone pressed under his feet. Wind moved across his face and carried away the factory stink clinging to him. He crouched on the ledge outside the runoff mouth, one hand still braced against the rock, and looked back to make sure Tails came through. Tails did, coughing dust and blinking in the brightness. Sonic landed beside them a moment later. His grin faded when he saw Ren's shoulder. That looks bad. Ren gave him a flat look. Sonic raised both hands. Right, understatement. Tails checked the scanner. Eggman's assembly line took real damage. The Revision 2 units are delayed, but not destroyed. He will rebuild if we give him time. Ren looked across the canyon. Below them, a hidden vent coughed smoke from under the rock. Farther away, the relocated hollow lay beyond a line of pine trees where Clover and the other animals waited with Sonic's temporary trail markers around them. The distance looked small from up here. It was not small. The canyon floor between them and the pine line was broken by old rails, loose stone, and dry gullies where water had once run hard enough to carve teeth into the earth. Ren could cross it faster than Tails if he ignored pain. Sonic could cross it faster than both of them. Eggman knew that too. That was the problem. Ren crouched and touched the dust. Fresh tire marks cut across an older animal trail below the ledge, not the heavy tread of a full transport. Smaller, lighter, scout wheels. He pointed. Tails followed the line with his scanner. Those are new. Sonic's jaw tightened. How new? Tails swallowed while we were underground. Ren's stomach went cold in a way the drainage water had not managed. Eggman had not only chased them through the factory, he had used the time. While Ren and Tails broke machines below, something else had been searching above. Ren pictured Clover tucked under roots, ears pressed flat, trusting the hollow because Ren had led her there. He pictured the other animals packed close, waiting because Sonic said it was safer, because Tails had marked the route, because Ren had fought to make it true. His claws sank into the stone. Sonic saw it and stepped closer, not blocking him, just close enough to be heard. We get there fast, but smart. You are hurt. Tails, can you track the scouts? Tails nodded once, if they are still transmitting. Ren did not like it either. Safe for now. Not finished. The communicator on Tails's belt gave a short burst of static. Then Eggman's voice pushed through, strained and furious. You have made your point, little amphibian. Ren's eyes narrowed. Eggman continued, now I will make mine. The hollow is not as hidden as your blue friend believes. Sonic went still. Tails' ears flattened. Ren did not wait for anyone to translate the threat. He turned toward the pine line. The pain in his shoulder stayed. The exhaustion stayed. The fear stayed too, sharp and ugly under his ribs. But Clover was there. The animals were there. And Eggman had just made the mistake of saying cage without saying the word. Ren ran. Asterisk chapter 26, Hollow Alarm. Ren ran like pain was something behind him instead of inside him. The canyon blurred under his feet. Dry stone became rails, rails became broken gravel, and broken gravel became slanted earth where old water had carved channels toward the pine line. He used all of it. Wall, ledge, fallen support beam, boulder face. His body found angles faster than thought. Sonic kept pace without effort, but he did not shoot ahead. That told Ren enough. The hedgehog wanted to. Every line of him leaned forward, hungry for speed, ready to cross the distance in a blue streak and smash whatever threatened the hollow before anyone else arrived. But Sonic stayed close because Ren was hurt, Tails was slower, and Eggman had used the word hidden like a hook. Trap. Ren knew it. Sonic knew it. Knowing did not make Clover safer. Tails flew low behind them, twin tails spinning hard. His scanner beeped in frantic bursts. 3 signals ahead, small scouts, not full combat units. They are sweeping the outer markers. Ren snapped his head toward him. Tails pointed left. They have not found the entrance yet. Yet. Ren pushed harder. His shoulder answered with a hot, tearing feeling. He stumbled once, caught himself on one hand, and vaulted over a dry gully without slowing. Dust stuck to the blood on his arm. His breath came rough, more croak than air. Sonic cut closer. Ren. Ren ignored him. Ren. That tone was different. Ren glanced over. Sonic pointed 2 fingers to his own eyes, then ahead, then split his hands apart. Watch plan, divide. Ren hated that he understood. He hated more that Sonic was right. Ren slowed from a reckless sprint into a low, silent run along the gully wall. Sonic flashed ahead in a curve instead of a straight line, bright enough to be seen from the sky. Tails dipped behind a stand of stone needles and opened his scanner map. The hollow lay beyond the next ridge. Ren smelled it before he saw it. Animals, damp roots, old leaves, Clover's warm fur buried among a dozen other frightened scents. Over that came machine oil. Close. Too close. Ren climbed the ridge on all 4s and stopped just below the top. Below him, the relocated hollow sat under a tangle of roots and stone. Sonic's markers were still in place, disguised as snapped twigs and scuffed rock. The entrance itself remained hidden behind hanging moss. 3 scout machines moved around it. They were not attacking. They were listening. Each one looked like a narrow metal beetle on wheels, with dish-shaped ears folded up from its back. They rolled slowly through the brush, pausing whenever an animal shifted inside the hollow. One carried a small net pod under its chassis. Another had a scent collector that hissed near the ground. The third had Clover's trail. Ren saw the little machine stop at a patch of bent grass where Clover had crossed earlier. Its dish ear rotated toward the moss-covered entrance. Something dark and simple moved through Ren. No. Sonic appeared on the far side of the clearing in a blur, waving both arms. Hey, looking for me. 2 scouts snapped toward him. The third did not. It kept rolling toward the moss. Ren dropped from the ridge. He landed without sound behind it. His hand closed around the scent collector before the machine could transmit. He crushed the tube flat, then drove a water shuriken through the wheel housing. The scout folded sideways into the dirt. Too loud. The hollow stirred. Inside, animals squeaked and shifted. Ren heard Clover's quick thump, thump, thump against packed earth. He wanted to call to her. He could not risk sound. Ren crouched in front of the moss and lifted one hand with 2 fingers spread. The signal tails had taught the hollow animals to associate with weight. The movement inside stilled. Not completely. Enough. Across the clearing, Sonic bounced between the other 2 scouts. He kicked one into the air, let it fire its net at empty space, then knocked the second into the net mid-flight. Both machines crashed together against a tree trunk. Tails dropped beside Ren. Signal blocked. I jammed them before they could send the exact entrance location. Ren turned toward the broken scout at his feet. Its eye was still blinking. Tails saw it too. Backup memory. Ren raised his foot. "Wait," Tails hissed. Ren froze. Tails knelt, popped open the scout's side, and pulled out a thin black chip. "If I erase it here, Eggman knows we found it. If I rewrite it." Ren understood the shape of the idea, even before the words finished. Wrong trail. He pointed toward the canyon ruins, away from the hollow. Tails nodded quickly. Exactly. Sonic zipped back, carrying the other 2 disabled scouts under one arm. "Please tell me we are about to make Eggman chase rocks." Tails's grin was tired but real. Several rocks. Ren kept watch while Tails worked. His body wanted to sag. Every heartbeat pushed pain through his shoulder. His leg trembled from the climb. But the hollow entrance was behind him, and that made standing simple. The moss shifted. Clover's nose appeared first. Ren looked back sharply and raised the wait signal again. Clover froze with only her nose and one ear showing. Sonic whispered, "She listens to you better than I listen to anybody." Ren gave him a look. Sonic smiled for half a second, then faced outward again. Tails finished the rewrite and slid the chip back into the scout. Done. This one now thinks Clover's trail leads into the collapsed rail spur. The other 2 will support that if Eggman recovers them. Ren pointed at the net pod. Tails removed it, made a disgusted face, and crushed the trigger with his wrench. No cages. Good. Sonic set the broken scouts in the wrong direction and kicked dust over the real tracks. We need to move the hollow again. Tails looked at the animals hidden under the roots. They are tired. Ren looked too. Clover's eye watched him from behind the moss, dark and scared, but steady. The other animals pressed close behind her. They had trusted the last move because Ren had walked beside them. Asking them to move again after machines reached this close felt cruel. Staying felt worse. Ren touched his chest, then pointed deeper into the pines, then made the wait signal smaller and softer. Clover blinked. Tails translated quietly. He is saying he will lead, not run, lead. The animals shifted again, fear turning into motion. The communicator crackled before they could begin. Eggman's voice came through, calm this time. "Interesting, I found a false trail." No one moved. Eggman chuckled, "Which means there is a true one nearby." Above the trees, something large blocked the sun for one passing second. Ren looked up. A shadow moved across the pine tops. Not a scout. Not a drone. Something carrying a cage, big enough for the whole hollow. Ren's throat tightened around a sound that was almost a growl. Sonic's hands curled into fists. Tails whispered, "That is a transport net." The shape above the trees unfolded in sections. 4 hovering anchors spread apart, each one dragging a corner of dark mesh between them. The net was not dropping yet. It was measuring. Little red lights ran along the edges, counting the distance between tree trunks, roots, rocks, and the hidden hollow entrance. Eggman did not need to know exactly where the animals were if he could take the entire patch of ground. Tails looked sick. It can lift the root mass. Sonic's voice went low. Then we do not let it settle. Ren stared at the anchors. 4 corners. 4 targets. 1 injured shoulder. 1 tired fox. 1 hedgehog who could hit anything he could reach. Ren pointed at Sonic, then the far anchors. He pointed at Tails, then the scanner, then the closest support beam under the net. Finally, he pointed to himself and tapped the moss-covered entrance. Guard. Sonic understood first. You keep them calm and stop anything that gets through. Ren nodded. Tails swallowed hard, then forced himself to breathe. I can jam the anchor sink if I get close enough to one of the control beams. If the corners stop talking to each other, Sonic can knock them out of formation. The net hummed lower. Clover made a frightened sound behind the moss. Ren answered with the softest croak he could manage, not words, just presence. Stay, here, me. The sound inside the hollow quieted by a fraction. Enough to begin. Ren stepped in front of the moss-covered entrance. The animals were behind him. Eggman was above. This time, the cage had come to them. Asterisk Chapter 27, Net over Roots. The transport net lowered 1 careful meter at a time. That was worse than a sudden attack. A sudden attack would have given Ren something simple to strike. This was measured, patient. 4 hovering anchors held the corners above the pine tops while the dark mesh spread between them, wide enough to swallow the root-covered hollow, the moss entrance, the brush around it, and every frightened animal hiding inside. Eggman was not aiming at Ren. He was aiming at everything Ren had promised to protect. Ren stood in front of the moss with both feet planted and 1 hand lifted behind him in the wait signal. His shoulder throbbed. His legs shook. He kept his body between the animals and the lowering shadow anyway. Clover made 1 small sound inside the hollow. Ren answered with a low croak. Stay. Tails moved first. The fox sprinted toward the nearest anchor beam with his scanner hugged to his chest, ducking under roots and broken branches, while Sonic shot across the clearing in a blue arc. Sonic slammed into the far left anchor before the net finished aligning. The machine bucked sideways, rotors screaming, but a stabilizer cable snapped tight and dragged it back into formation. It self-corrects, Tails shouted. Sonic landed on a trunk, then we correct it harder. The net dropped another meter. Leaves bent under the pressure field. Loose dust lifted from the ground. The moss over the hollow entrance shivered, and the animals inside shifted despite Ren's signal. Ren did not turn around. If he looked at Clover, he would want to gather her up and run. If he ran, the others would scatter. Eggman wanted scatter. Ren could feel that too clearly. He crouched and pressed his good hand into the damp soil near the hollow entrance. There was water under the roots. Not much. Old rain. Thin moisture caught in moss, mud, and the narrow underground thread that fed the hollow's cool air. Enough if he was careful. He pulled. Water climbed through the dirt in silver lines. It wet the roots, darkened the moss, and gathered around Ren's fingers. The effort made his injured shoulder pulse hot and white, but the water answered. It did not become a blade. A blade would scare the animals. A blade would cut one thing. Ren needed a wall. The first anchor adjusted above him and fired a small probe into the ground. The probe struck near the entrance, unfolded hooks, and started pulling the moss aside. Ren's tongue snapped out. It wrapped around the probe and yanked it free before the hooks could tear the cover open. He crushed it under his foot. The net stopped, descending for half a second. Tails seized the opening. He jumped onto the nearest anchor support and jammed his scanner cable into a maintenance port. Sparks crawled over his gloves. Ren, Tails called, I need the beam wet. Ren looked at the support. Too far. Too much open ground. Sonic understood before Ren moved. The hedgehog grabbed a fallen metal panel from one of the destroyed scouts and skidded it across the clearing like a shield. Ren sent the gathered water after it, sliding the stream along the panel's surface. Sonic kicked the panel upward at the last moment. Water splashed across the anchor beam. Tails hit the scanner command. The wet beam sparked blue. One corner of the net sagged. Sonic grinned. That corner looks corrected. The other 3 anchors responded at once. Small cannon ports opened under their frames, not net cannons this time. Sonic dodged the first shot and shouted a warning as metal stakes fired into the clearing. The stakes hit the ground and unfolded into little tripod emitters. Tails went pale, panicked drivers. The emitters screamed. The sound was too high for Ren's ears and too deep for his bones. It dug into the hollow like claws. The animals inside erupted into motion. Tiny feet scraped earth. Wings beat. Clover thumped hard enough for Ren to feel it through the ground. Eggman's voice rolled from the transport speakers. No need to locate the entrance if they flee for me. Ren's vision narrowed. He wanted to break every emitter. But the animals were moving now, and if the moss burst open, the net would take them in the open. Ren turned halfway, forcing himself to show his face without leaving the entrance. He made the wait signal again. The animals did not stop. The scream was too strong. Clover appeared at the moss edge, eyes wide, body trembling so hard her ears shook. Ren lowered himself until his face was level with hers. His throat tightened around a sound he barely knew how to make. Not a word, not Mobian. Something softer, pulled from memory of quiet forests and from the old human part of him that remembered soothing scared things with tone more than language. He croaked once. Clover froze. Ren tapped his chest, then touched the ground. Meet here. Clover's breathing stayed fast, but she did not run. Behind her, the other animals pressed close and hesitated. That was all Sonic needed. He became a blue line across the clearing, smashing one panicked driver, then the next, then the third before the fourth could finish its cycle. The scream broke into pieces and died. Ren whipped around and threw the water wall upward. The net dropped. The wall met it from below, not strong enough to stop the whole weight, but strong enough to twist the mesh sideways. The sagging wet corner tangled around a pine branch instead of settling over the hollow. Tails shouted something triumphant and triggered his jam. All 4 anchors stuttered. Sonic hit the far right anchor at full speed. This time it did not correct. It spun out of formation, dragging its corner of the net across the treetops. The mesh tore against branches with a long, ripping sound. Sunlight broke through the dark grid. Ren's knees nearly gave. He locked them. Not done. The nearest anchor recovered enough to dive toward Tails. Ren saw the fox look up too late. Ren moved. Pain vanished under instinct. He crossed the distance in 2 bounding leaps, caught Tails around the waist, and hit the ground rolling as the anchor's clamps snapped shut where Tails had been. The impact drove the air out of Ren's chest. Tails coughed, "Thanks." Ren managed a rough click. The anchor turned toward the hollow entrance. No. Ren rose with Tails still behind him and formed the biggest water shuriken he could from the scattered moisture, broken coolant residue still clinging to his skin, and the last of the water wall dripping from the net. It was ugly, thin, uneven. It was enough. He threw it into the anchor's underside. The shuriken cut through the exposed stabilizer joint Tails had soaked and fried. The anchor lurched, dropped one side, and slammed into the ground short of the moss. Sonic landed on top of it a heartbeat later and drove both heels through its casing. The transport net collapsed across the clearing in ruined folds. Not over the hollow. Around it. Eggman's speaker crackled with static. That, he said, voice tight, was an expensive net. Wren stood in front of the moss, breathing hard. Clover's nose touched the back of his ankle. He did not look down until the final anchor smoked itself dead in the branches. Then he let himself turn. Clover stared up at him, still scared, still here. Wren lifted one shaking hand and made the lead signal toward the deeper pines. This time, the animals moved together. Sonic looked at the ruined net, then at the trees. We move now. Tails nodded, already limping toward the false trail route. Before Eggman sends something that does not care about keeping them alive. Wren stepped beside Clover and the hollow animals as they emerged. His shoulder hurt. His legs hurt. His throat hurt from sounds that almost became words. None of that mattered more than the small, warm body walking at his side, trusting him to choose the next path. Above the clearing, one broken anchor sparked and fell silent. The hollow was empty now. The chase was not over. It had only changed shape. Again. Chapter 28. Moving Hollow. The animals moved like fear had teeth. Wren kept beside them, not ahead, not behind. Beside. That mattered. If he ran ahead, Clover tried to follow too fast. If he fell behind, the smaller animals looked back and stumbled over roots. So Wren stayed where they could see him, one hand low, claws open, shoulders hunched despite the pain. Lead. Not chase. The pines swallowed the clearing behind them. Broken pieces of Eggman's transport net still crackled in the branches, fading into the distance one step at a time. Sonic covered the rear in quick blue flashes, darting from trunk to trunk, erasing tracks with gusts of dust and kicking loose branches over the clearest path. Tails moved near the front with his scanner. He kept the volume low so the beeps would not scare the animals, but Wren heard the tension in every tiny sound. Eggman is sweeping the falls trail, Tails whispered. For now. For now was another phrase Wren disliked. Clover pressed close to Wren's ankle. Her fur brushed his foot every few steps, warm and shaking. Wren wanted to pick her up, but if he carried her, the others might panic. They needed to believe walking was possible. So he walked. His shoulder pulsed with each step. The folded pad had slipped, and a dark line of blood marked his arm again. He ignored it until Tails glanced back for the fourth time. Wren gave a low click. Tails whispered, I know, not stopping. Good. The path bent downhill toward a narrow creek bed. It was mostly dry, only a thread of water slipping between stones, but Wren felt it before he saw it. The small current tugged at his senses like a hand in the dark. Water meant options. Water also meant tracks. Wren stepped into the creek first and turned back to the animals. He touched the water, then pointed along the bed. Clover sniffed, hesitated, and stepped in after him. The others followed in a ragged line. Sonic appeared beside Tails. Water hides scent. Tails nodded. Some, not from everything. Wren looked up sharply. Tails grimaced. Eggman's newer scouts may use heat and vibration too. Wren pointed at Sonic, then the ground behind them. Sonic gave a quick salute, fake vibrations coming up. He vanished. A moment later, dull impacts echoed from the slope they had not taken. Sonic was bouncing between rocks, making a trail loud enough for any machine to believe a whole group had gone that way. The animals flinched at the sound. Wren croaked softly. Clover stopped flinching first. The rest followed her. That made something twist in Wren's chest. Clover was scared enough that her nose trembled, but she still trusted him. Worse, the others trusted her trusting him. It was a chain made from fear and faith, and if Wren broke it, all of them would scatter. He would not break it. The creek bed narrowed between two stone shelves. Tails lifted one hand. Wait. Wren froze. The animals froze behind him, in uneven waves. Above the shelves, a tiny black lens slid from a pine branch. A watcher. Not a full scout, smaller, patient, silent. It turned toward the creek bed. Ren's body wanted to throw a water shuriken through it. Tails shook his head quickly. Too loud. Ren understood and hated it. Tails pulled a small mirror chip from his pouch and angled it toward the lens. For a second, nothing happened. Then the watcher adjusted, following the reflected movement away from the creek. Tails nudged the chip again, slow as moonlight on water, until the watcher stared at an empty patch of brush. Ren stepped under it with the animals. One by one, they passed beneath the branch. Clover slipped on a wet stone. Ren caught her with his tongue before she hit the rock. He set her down gently, then looked at the watcher. The lens twitched. It had heard something. Tails went still. Ren did not throw. He lifted water from the creek in a thread so thin it looked like mist. The thread climbed the branch, touched the watcher, and seeped into the lens seam. No blade, no splash, just water where water should not be. The watcher blinked once and died. Tails exhaled. Nice. Ren gave the smallest nod and kept moving. The creek ended at a fallen cedar whose roots formed a dark pocket under the slope. The space beyond smelled of old earth, mushrooms, and cold stone, not large enough for a permanent shelter, large enough to hide frightened animals for an hour. Tails scanned it twice. No metal, no active signals. It opens into a root tunnel on the far side. Sonic returned in a streak of dust, skidding to a stop with leaves stuck to his quills. I bought us maybe 5 minutes. Eggman is mad at the wrong hill. Ren pointed to the root pocket. Sonic looked at the animals. Temporary. Ren nodded. Tails crouched and spoke softly to the group, using the calm tone he used around damaged machines and scared living things alike. Inside for a little while. Quiet. Ren will stay close. Ren touched his chest. Here. Clover entered first. The animals followed, slipping under the cedar roots into the cool dark. Ren stayed at the entrance until the last tiny bird vanished inside. Only then did he lower himself to one knee. Pain hit immediately. Sonic noticed, "You are sitting down." Ren glared. "That was not a request," Sonic said, then softened it with a crooked smile. "Okay, maybe it was, still." Tails was already beside Ren with a clean bandage. 2 minutes. If you bleed all over the new hiding place, Eggman's scent trackers get a free map. That argument worked. Ren let Tails wrap the wound. The communicator crackled before the bandage was tied. Eggman's voice came through, bright with forced cheer. "I found your decoy trail. Very rude, very clever, very temporary." Sonic's smile disappeared. Eggman continued, "Run if you like. I am learning which things you slow down for." Ren looked toward the root pocket. Clover's eye reflected faintly from the dark. Eggman was learning the wrong lesson. Ren was not slowing down because he was weak. He was slowing down because they mattered. He rose before Tails finished tying the bandage. Tails caught the loose end and knotted it fast. "Then we make that harder to use against us." Sonic looked into the deeper trees. "How?" Ren touched the creek water, then pointed to 3 different paths: roots, stone, water. Not one trail. Many. Sonic's grin came back, sharp this time. "Now that sounds annoying." Ren looked at Clover, then at the darkening forest ahead. They set the plan in motion before Eggman's next sweep could close. Sonic took the loudest path first. He ran just hard enough to crack twigs, kick stones, and leave a trail any vibration sensor would love. Then he doubled back through the upper branches where his feet barely touched bark. To a machine, it would look like a panicked group had bolted over the ridge. Tails handled the second path. He used bits from the broken watcher, a strip of bandage, and 2 tiny pulse chips to make a false heat trail that crawled along the stone shelf. It would not fool Eggman forever, but it might steal minutes. Ren made the third path with water. He stood in the creek until the cold numbed his ankles and pulled thin streams over roots, moss, and old stones. The water carried scent away from the cedar pocket, scattered it into places where no animal had walked, and left the real group hidden in the quiet between trails. Clover watched him from the root shadow. Ren met her eyes and tapped the ground twice. Wait. She lowered herself into the dark again. Good. His legs nearly folded after that. Sonic caught his elbow before he dropped. Easy. Ren clicked in irritation, but he did not pull away. Tails tied the last pulse chip to a branch and looked back toward the sky. When Eggman follows these, he will think we split into at least 3 groups. Sonic glanced at the cedar roots, and when he realizes we did not. Tails's tails drooped for half a second. Then we need to already be gone. Ren looked down the root tunnel opening behind the animals. It was narrow, dark, and wet enough that his senses could follow it. Not safe, not comfortable, but Eggman's bigger machines would struggle to fit. He pointed into it. Tails scanned the opening and nodded slowly. It connects to older ground tunnels, maybe badger paths, maybe water-cut hollows. Sonic crouched to peer inside. Not exactly my favorite running lane. Ren gave him a tired look. Sonic sighed. Yeah, not about me. The communicator gave one soft click. Eggman's search signal touching the edge of Tails's jammer. Time was up. The hollow was gone. The pack was moving. And Eggman would have to chase every shadow in the woods to find them. Asterisk Chapter 29, Root Tunnel. The root tunnel swallowed sound. That was the first mercy it offered. Outside, the forest still carried Sonic's false trail in sharp cracks and rolling stones. Tails's heat decoy crawled along the shelf above them. Ren's water trail split through moss and old roots, dragging scent away from the real path. But inside the tunnel, beneath the cedar, all of that became distant. Only breathing remained. Small animal breathing, Clover's quick nose, Tails trying to keep his own panic quiet, Ren's rough, uneven breaths that kept catching against the pain in his shoulder. The tunnel was narrow enough that Sonic had to crouch and move sideways. For once, speed meant nothing. He stayed behind the animals with one hand on the low ceiling, blue quills brushing roots whenever the passage dipped. Not my favorite road, Sonic whispered. Ren looked back. Sonic gave him a tiny grin, still better than getting netted. Fair. Ren turned forward again and kept one hand near the ground. The water thread under the roots guided him through darkness. It was barely a stream, more damp memory than current, but his body could feel where it bent. The passage sloped downhill, then forked around a knot of stone. Left smelled stale. Right smelled like old water and open dirt. Ren pointed right. Tails lifted the scanner, then stopped himself before the screen could glow too bright. He dimmed it under one hand and checked. Right goes deeper. It may connect to an old drainage hollow. May. Ren accepted May, because the left path smelled like something had died there years ago and stayed. He tapped Clover's path twice. Clover went first, low and careful. The other animals followed her. Ren moved beside the line, sometimes on hands and feet, sometimes sideways, always close enough for the small ones to see his pale chest and dark limbs in the dimness. Lead. Do not chase. Do not crowd. His instincts hated having fragile things all around him. Prey sense, fear sense, warm bodies brushing his legs. The predator part of him catalogued every movement, no matter how hard he tried to ignore it. The human part answered each thought with a name. Clover. Not prey. Rabbit with too much courage. Friend. The tunnel shook. Dust fell from the roots. Everyone froze. Above them, something heavy moved across the forest floor, not directly overhead, close enough to send a deep vibration through the earth. Tails pressed the scanner against the wall and listened through it, his ears flattened. Crawler carrier. Sonic's smile vanished. How many? One large unit, maybe carrying smaller trackers. Ren's hand closed around wet soil. Eggman had followed one of the trails faster than expected. Not the real trail yet. Close enough. A tiny bird near the back fluttered in panic. Sonic caught the movement with both hands cupped, gentle despite his speed, and lowered it back into line. Easy, Sonic breathed. Easy. Ren made the wait signal. The line steadied. The carrier above rolled past, then stopped. The tunnel held its breath. Tails' scanner gave one muted pulse. Ren looked at him. Tails mouthed, it heard. No one moved. Ren felt the ground with both palms. The carrier's vibration was broad and heavy, like a drum pressed against the earth. Under it came smaller clicks, deployment clamps opening. Trackers. Eggman was seeding the area. Ren pointed to Sonic, then upward, then made a small circling motion. Sonic frowned. You want me outside? Ren nodded. Tails whispered. If Sonic draws them away, the tunnel line can keep moving. But if the carrier sees the entrance... Ren pointed to himself, then the tunnel. He would keep the entrance quiet. Sonic did not like it. That was clear. But he understood the math, and Sonic was better than most people at moving before fear could argue. 10 seconds, Sonic whispered. He squeezed past the animals like a blue shadow, careful not to step on tails, wings, or paws. At the rear, he vanished through a gap between roots. 10 seconds later, the forest above exploded into motion. Hey, ugly, Sonic shouted from somewhere left of the tunnel. You lose something. The carrier's engine roared. Trackers skittered after him. The animals flinched. Ren did not let them scatter. He moved down the line, touching the ground near each cluster, croaking low and soft until the panic bent back into movement. Clover stayed at the front, but she looked over her shoulder often, checking that Ren was still there. He was. He would be. The right passage widened into a chamber under tangled roots. It was not large, but compared to the tunnel it felt open. A thin stream crossed the floor and vanished through cracks in the far wall. The ceiling hung low with roots thick as ropes. Tails scanned quickly. No signals in here. Ren did not trust that. He stepped into the stream and sent water through the chamber in a thin ring. It found stones, roots, old burrows, and one piece of metal no bigger than his claw. Ren froze. Tails followed his stare. Where? Ren pointed. Tails crawled to the wall, dug carefully through mud, and pulled out a tiny black bead. Not active. Old. Still Eggman. Passive tag, Tails whispered. Probably dropped by some earlier scout. Ren's lips pulled back. Tails crushed it between pliers before Ren could. No signal now. Good. The communicator crackled with Sonic's voice, breathless but bright. I have our metal friend chasing me uphill. Please tell me you found somewhere less terrible. Tails looked around the root chamber. Less terrible is generous. Ren touched the stream, then pointed to the cracks in the far wall. Water moved through them. Something beyond. Tails scanned again. There is a narrow washout behind that wall. If Ren can open it without collapsing the chamber, we can move through and come out near the old fern beds. Sonic whistled through the communicator. Fern beds are good. Lots of smell, lots of cover. Ren studied the wall. The crack was tight. Roots held the dirt together. If he cut wrong, the chamber could fall. If he did nothing, Eggman's carrier might return. He knelt in the stream. Water first. Not force. Ren pulled the thin stream into the crack, feeling where it widened behind the wall. He shaped it like fingers, pressing mud loose from inside instead of slicing from outside. The wall softened. Tails braced the roots with 2 compact clamps from his pouch. Clover watched from the front of the animal cluster. Ren felt her trust like weight. He worked slower. The wall opened with a sigh of wet earth. Cool, fern-scented air slipped through. The animals stirred, but not in panic this time. In hope. Ren held the opening with both hands, while Tails checked the edges. Slow, Tails warned. One at a time. If too many push through together, the roots may shift. Ren repeated the warning without words. Palm low, wait, point, move. Clover understood first, as usual. She stepped through, then stopped on the other side instead of vanishing ahead. Her outline showed through the gap, small and steady in the fern-shadowed light. The next animal followed, because Clover stayed visible. Then the next. Ren's arms trembled. Mud slid under his fingers. A root creaked overhead, and for one sharp second he imagined the whole ceiling folding down on them because he had chosen wrong. Tails wedged another clamp into place. I have it. Keep holding. Ren held. Above and far away, Sonic's chase changed pitch. The carrier was climbing now, engines straining. Sonic was dragging it up the wrong slope, away from the animals, away from the opened wall, away from the real escape. Ren wanted to thank him. He had no breath for it. The line kept moving. Ren sat back, shaking. Tails caught his arm. You did it. Ren managed one rough sound that might have meant move. Tails understood. Everyone through, quietly. Clover entered the new passage first. The line followed. Behind them, Sonic's deco chase echoed farther away. Ahead, the washout smelled like green cover, damp leaves, and a path Eggman had not chosen. Ren waited until every animal passed. Tails went next, but paused in the opening. Ren. Ren looked at him. The fox pointed to the chamber floor, then to the old passive tag crushed in the mud. We should make this look collapsed. Ren understood. He pulled water back through the softened wall and let part of the mud slump inward after Tails removed the clamps. Not enough to bury the tunnel, enough to hide the clean edges, enough to make the chamber look like wet earth had shifted naturally after old roots gave way. Tails scattered broken stones over their prints. Ren dragged one final line of water across the floor, erasing the last clear tracks. Only then did he follow. Then he ducked into the new tunnel after them, leaving the root chamber dark and empty behind him. Asterisk Chapter 30, Fern Bed. The washout tunnel ended under ferns taller than Tails. Ren emerged into green shadow and stopped at once. The smell hit him first. Damp leaves, mud, crushed stems, old water under deep roots. It was not safety, but it was cover, thick enough to hide movement and layered enough to confuse anything that trusted clean lines. Clover slipped out beside his foot and vanished almost completely under fern fronds. Good. The other animals followed in a cautious stream. Some crawled, some hopped. A few birds fluttered low without rising above the leaves. Ren stayed at the opening until the last one came through, then pulled a curtain of wet fern stems back across the hole. The tunnel disappeared. Tails crawled out last, mud on his muzzle and scanner pressed tight to his chest. No immediate signal lock, he whispered. Ren looked toward the distant crash of Sonic's deco fight. Not immediate did not mean none. Tails heard it too. Sonic is still moving. Ren pointed toward the sound. Tails shook his head. If you go after him, the animals lose the one person they are actually following. Ren hated the answer. He hated that it was true. Clover nudged his ankle as if she could feel the argument inside him. Ren looked down. She stared up through the fern shadows, ears low but steady. Lead. He had chosen that. He could not drop it every time Sonic made danger sound like a joke. Ren crouched and touched the mud. Water gathered around his fingers, thin but clean. He drew 3 short lines, one toward the creek, one toward the stones, one deeper into the fern bed. Tails studied them, 3 layers again. Ren nodded. The fox's tired eyes sharpened. Real group goes through the ferns. Sonic's noise trail pulls the big carrier away. I can send a false heat trail toward the creek. Ren tapped the stone line. Tails frowned. What goes that way? Ren pointed to himself, then made a small split motion with 2 fingers. Tails understood and immediately disliked it. No, you are not making a personal blood trail for Eggman to chase. Ren looked at the bandage on his shoulder. It was already marked red. Tails lowered his voice. That is exactly why he will follow it. Yes, that was the point. Clover thumped once, sharp and angry. Ren blinked at her. Tails folded his arms. Even Clover thinks that is a terrible idea. Ren stared at the rabbit. Clover stared back. Small, frightened, absolutely refusing. Ren let out a slow breath and wiped the blood from his claws into the mud instead of onto the stone path. Then he mixed it with water, leaf rot, and a broken piece of scout casing Tails had carried from earlier. The scent would be faint, enough to suggest injury, not enough to require Ren leaving the group. Tails relaxed by half, Deke only. Ren nodded. Good, I like plans where you do not volunteer to be bait every 3 minutes. Ren gave him a flat look. Tails did not apologize. The communicator clicked. Sonic's voice came through in a whisper this time. I lost the carrier behind the upper ridge. It deployed tiny crawling things, though, lots of them. Please tell me we have a new path. Tails answered, Fern bed. We are layering false trails. Nice, annoying and leafy. I approve. The approval came with another crash in the distance. Ren lifted his head. Sonic added quickly, that was intentional. Tails closed his eyes for half a second. Was it? Mostly. Ren made a low sound that might have been annoyance if his throat had been built for sarcasm. Sonic heard it anyway. Hey, I am keeping the large angry machine away from your very quiet rescue parade. You are welcome. Ren pressed one claw to the communicator. The word would not come. He settled for 2 rough clicks and a breath. Sonic's voice softened. Yeah, I know. Ren pressed the communicator with 1 claw and made a low croak. Sonic's voice softened. I am okay. Keep them moving. I will catch up. Ren closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he opened them and moved. The fern bed was slow work. Ren went first, parting fronds without breaking them when he could, bending them back into place after the animals passed. Tails followed near the middle, planting tiny pulse chips that gave off heat in the wrong direction. Clover stayed close to Ren, but now she checked on the animals behind her too, turning back whenever the line slowed. She was leading with him. That mattered. A small hedgehog kit stumbled under fern root and squeaked. Ren froze. So did the line. Above the ferns, something clicked. Tracker. Ren lowered himself until his belly nearly touched the mud. Through the fern stems, he saw a crawling machine no bigger than Tails's hand moving along a fallen branch. Its sensor whiskers swept the air. It was not looking for sight. It was tasting vibration and scent. The kit trembled. Ren extended his tongue slowly, not at the tracker, but at the root trapping the kit's foot. He loosened the root and nudged the kit free without moving the ferns above. The kit limped once. Ren saw it and shifted closer. A hurt animal could slow the line. A hurt animal could make noise. The practical thoughts arrived first, cold and useful. Then the kit looked up at him with wet black eyes, and the practical thoughts became something sharper. No one left behind. Ren slid one hand under the kit and moved it onto a patch of soft moss beside Clover. Clover nudged the kit forward with her nose, keeping it between herself and Wren's feet where the fern cover was thickest. "Good rabbit." Wren wanted to say it. Instead, he touched 2 fingers to his chest, then lowered them toward Clover in the smallest thanks he could manage. Clover's ears lifted by a fraction. The tracker paused. Tails's hand hovered near a pulse charge. Wren shook his head once. Too loud. Water moved better. Wren gathered dew from fern leaves. Drop by drop, it slid into a bead under his palm. He flicked it against a stone 2 body lengths away. Tab. The tracker turned. Another bead. Tab. It crawled toward the full sound. Wren sent the 3rd bead into a patch of mud softened by the undergrown seep. The tracker stepped onto it, sank 1/2 an inch, and stopped. Its tiny legs spun without purchase. Tails moved then, quick and silent. He placed a folded leaf over the tracker, pressed down once, and shorted it with a tiny spark hidden under his palm. No explosion. No signal. The line moved again. By the time Sonic returned, Wren's legs felt hollow. The hedgehog appeared beside a fern trunk, scratched across one cheek and grinning anyway. "You all look terrible." Tails whispered, "You are covered in leaves." "Hero leaves." Wren gave him a tired look that required no translation. Sonic's grin softened. "Okay, quiet hero leaves." Tails checked the scanner. Eggman's crawlers are spreading, but they are following the creek heat trail and the blood mud deeker. We have a narrow gap east. East smelled like older forest and running water. Wren pointed. The animals followed. They did not move fast. That was the part Wren had to keep accepting. Sonic could cross the gap in seconds. Tails could fly over roots if he had to. Wren himself could force his body into one more painful burst. The animals could not. The injured kit limped. 2 birds were too tired to fly. Clover kept slowing to make sure the smallest ones stayed with the line. So Wren matched them. Every instinct screamed that slow meant caught. Wren answered by making slow harder to track. He stepped only where water or moss would take his weight without leaving a clean print. He bent ferns back into place after each cluster passed. When a branch snagged fur from one of the animals, he removed the caught hairs and buried them in mud under a false trail marker. Tails noticed and copied him. Sonic saw it too, then stopped bouncing impatiently and started cleaning the rear path with careful little gusts instead of dramatic speed. The line became quieter. Not safe. Better. They moved through the fern bed as the first evening shadows stretched under the trees. Behind them, Eggman's trackers chewed on false trails. Ahead, the forest thickened into a place where roots crossed roots and water ran under stone. Wren did not know if it would be safe. He only knew it was not Eggman's path. For now, that was enough. Chapter 31. Older Water. The older forest began where the fern bed ended. Wren felt the change before the trees fully changed shape. The ground cooled under his feet. Roots crossed the soil in thicker knots, and the air carried the steady breath of running water somewhere ahead. Not a creek thread, not a runoff trickle. A real stream, broad enough to speak to his body from a distance. Good. Water meant cover. Water meant danger too. Eggman knew water mattered to him now. Wren led the animals low through the brush, while Sonic moved behind them in short, quiet bursts. The hedgehog had finally stopped making jokes every few seconds. That was how Wren knew the pressure was getting worse. Tails walked near the middle with the scanner dimmed under one hand, guiding the slowest animals around roots before they tripped. Clover stayed beside Wren. She kept doing that even when he wanted her deeper in the group, safer behind larger bodies. Every time he nudged her back, she returned to his ankle. Stubborn little thing. Friend. A pulse clicked from Tails' scanner. Everyone stopped. Ren lifted one hand. Wait. The line froze in ragged layers. A bird's wing trembled. The injured kit from the fern bed pressed flat under a leaf. Clover's nose twitched once, then stilled. Tails crouched. Two search patterns behind us. One high, one ground level. They are not on the real trail yet. They are sampling everything. Sonic leaned close. Sampling how? Scent, heat, motion, maybe water residue. Eggman is comparing the decoys against each other. Ren's fingers flexed. Eggman was not just chasing trails. He was learning which lies smelled like Ren. The stream sounded louder ahead. Ren pointed toward it. Tails hesitated. If we enter water, it hides scent, but if Eggman is watching water paths specifically. Sonic finished. Then he checks every stream. Ren nodded. Then he pointed to the animals, the stream, the roots above them, and finally to Sonic. Sonic stared for half a second before his grin returned, small and sharp. You want the obvious water trail to be mine. Ren nodded again. I can do obvious. Tails looked unhappy but thoughtful. Sonic makes a loud crossing downstream. Ren takes the animals through the shallow root shelves upstream. I can scatter heat pulses in both directions. Ren tapped the ground twice. Now. They moved. The stream appeared between two mossy banks, silver-black under the trees. It ran fast but not deep, broken by stones and root shelves where animals could cross if they did not panic. Ren stepped into it first. Cold water closed around his ankles and climbed his senses like breath, returning to a half-drowned body. He wanted to sink into it. No time. He crossed to the first stone, turned, and held out one hand. Clover jumped after him. The current tugged at her paws. Ren caught her gently around the middle and set her on the stone beside him. She shook once, offended by water and fear in equal measure, then faced the others. That helped. The line began crossing. Tails hovered low over the water, carrying the smallest bird in both hands. Sonic waited until half the animals were on the stones, then shot downstream like a blue spark. He hit the water hard enough to throw spray into the air and bounded from bank to bank, leaving the loudest trail possible. Hey, Eggman, Sonic shouted somewhere through the trees. You testing bath toys now? Machines answered, with distant clicks. Ren ignored them. One animal slipped. Ren's tongue snapped out, caught it by the scruff, and lifted it back to the root shelf. Another froze midstream, shaking too hard to jump. Ren pulled water around its legs, not pushing, only steadying the current until it could move. His shoulder burned from every reach. He kept reaching. Tails landed beside him on the far bank. Ground search just turned towards Sonic, high search still circling. Ren looked up. Through the canopy he saw it, a dark oval sliding between branches, silent as a dropped shadow. A scent drone, not large, not armed. Bad anyway. It paused over the stream. Ren lowered himself into the water, until only his eyes and head crest broke the surface. Tails whispered, Ren. Ren pointed at the animals, then forward. Keep moving. The drone descended, sampling mist from Sonic's splash trail. Its tiny intake fans opened. Ren waited until it dipped close enough for the stream to reflect its underside. Then he vanished. Not true invisibility, not magic, just water, shadow, and Greninja instinct folding around him. He slid under a fallen root, emerged beneath the drone, and sent a silent ribbon of water into its intake fan. The fan choked. The drone bobbled. Ren pulled it down into the stream before it could send a clean alert. It died under the current with one sad blink of red light. Tails exhaled. Clean, no transmission spike. Good. The last animal reached the far bank. Ren climbed out after them, heavier than before. Water ran off his limbs. Blood colored the bandage at his shoulder again, thin and pink where the stream had touched it. Clover stared. Ren gave her the lead signal. She thumped once, not moving. Sonic returned in a spray of leaves, soaked and pleased with himself. Ground crew is chasing my very heroic footprints. Also, I may have kicked one into a bush. Tails checked the scanner. We have maybe 6 minutes before the high search notices the missing drone. Ren looked ahead. Beyond the stream, old stone showed through the moss. Not natural, a buried channel, cracked by roots and half swallowed by the forest. Water ran beside it, slipping under a broken arch. Tails followed his gaze. Old aqueduct. Sonic tilted his head. Eggman built it. Tails shook his head. Too old. Pre-Eggman, maybe abandoned irrigation. Not Eggman's path. Ren liked it already. He pointed to the arch. The animals moved again, slower now but quieter. The stone channel curved into the trees, carrying the sound of water with them and folding the forest behind them like a door. Ren took one last look back at the stream. The dead drone drifted under leaves, invisible unless someone knew exactly where to search. Sonic's false trail shouted downstream. Their real trail slipped into old water and older stone. For the first time in hours, Eggman was behind them instead of around them. Ren did not trust it, but he could use it. Chapter 32, Stone Basin. The old aqueduct led to a basin hidden under roots. It had once been built cleanly, maybe even beautifully. Ren could see that in the curved stone lip, the careful channels, and the way water still entered from one side and left from another without flooding the hollow center. Time had broken most of it. Moss softened the edges. Ferns grew from cracks. Roots held the roof like a giant hand refusing to let the earth collapse. To Ren, it smelled like rest. That made him suspicious. The animals felt it too. They slowed as they entered, noses lifting, bodies relaxing by tiny degrees. Clover stepped onto a flat stone near the water and looked back at him as if asking permission. Ren checked the shadows first. No metal smell, no fresh oil, no humming rotors. Only water, stone, roots, animals and Sonic trying very hard to be quiet behind everyone. Ren lowered his hand. Rest. The animals sank into the basin like rain soaking into dry earth. The injured kit curled beside Clover. Birds tucked under fern leaves. Small shapes pressed into root alcoves and spaces between stones. Tails sat down too quickly, then pretended he meant to do it. Sonic noticed. You good? Fine, Tails said. Ren gave him a look. Tails sighed. Tired, not broken. That was acceptable. Then Ren's knees gave out. He caught himself with one hand before he hit the stone, but the movement sent white pain through his shoulder. For a breath, he could not hear the water. Only blood, breath, and the memory of metal nets dropping over roots. Clover rushed to him. So did Tails. Sonic was there too fast to see, one hand hovering but not grabbing. He had learned. Sit, Tails ordered. Ren wanted to refuse. Clover bit his ankle. Not hard, enough. Ren sat. Sonic made a strangled sound that might have been a laugh if the situation had been less ugly. Okay, new rule. If Clover agrees with Tails, you listen. Ren clicked at him. Tails opened the bandage, his ears flattened. This is not good. Ren looked away. Looking away does not make it better. Sonic crouched at the basin edge, watching the trees beyond the broken arch. How long? To fix it properly, more than we have. Tails pressed a clean pad over the wound. To stop him bleeding all over every trail, 2 minutes if he behaves. Ren behaved. Mostly. The water in the basin helped. He kept one foot in it, letting the cold climb through him. The pain did not leave, but it organized itself. Shoulder, leg, ribs, throat. manageable pieces instead of one storm. Tails tied the bandage tighter. Ren hissed. "Sorry," Tails whispered. Ren shook his head once. "Do it." A sound moved through the trees. Not engines, not footsteps, a pulse. Low, then high, then low again. Every animal in the basin flinched. Ren's hand went to the stone. Tails grabbed the scanner. "Sonic." "I hear it." Sonic's voice had lost all play. "What is it?" The pulse came again. This time the water in the basin trembled. Tails's face went pale under his fur. "Sound pingers. Eggman is mapping hollows by vibration." Ren understood enough. The pulse hit empty spaces differently. Caves, tunnels, basins, hiding places. Eggman did not need to see them. He could listen for the shape of where they hid. The animals began to stir, panic crawling back through them. Ren stood before Tails finished knotting the bandage. "Ren." Ren stepped deeper into the basin water. The next pulse rolled through the earth. He felt it in the water first, a pressure wave searching for walls. The basin answered with its own shape, a bowl of stone under roots. Too clear, too easy. Ren pressed both hands into the water and pulled. Not up. Around. The basin water began to move in circles, small at first, then faster, crossing itself in ripples that broke the clean echo. The next pulse struck and scattered. Stone answered wrong. Water answered in too many directions. Tails stared. "You are smearing the echo." "Good." Ren kept going. The effort dragged on his wound. His arms shook. Water spun around his knees, cold and silver in the dim basin light. Sonic moved to the arch. "I can take out the pingers if you tell me where." Tails checked the scanner, recalibrating fast. 3 units. North ridge, east slope, and one moving. The moving one is closest. Sonic grinned without humor. Closest first. He vanished. The pulse came again. Ren twisted the basin water harder. The echo broke, but not completely. A tiny tremor slipped through the roots overhead. Dirt fell. Clover pressed against his leg. Ren looked down. She did not look afraid of him. She looked afraid for him. That was worse. He softened the water's motion, spreading it through the side channels instead of forcing all of it through the basin. The old aqueduct helped. Water ran where builders had once wanted it to run, carrying vibration away through cracked stone veins. Tails noticed. Yes, use the channels. Make the whole structure answer like a stream, not a room. Ren did not know the words, but he understood the shape. The next pulse found water moving everywhere. The basin vanished from the echo. Sonic's voice crackled through the communicator. 1 pinger down, 2 to go. Another pulse struck, weaker. Ren held the water steady. Tails moved among the animals, calming the ones nearest the exits. Stay low, stay quiet, follow Clover. Clover, apparently promoted without being asked, stood on the flat stone and did not run. The injured Kit stayed beside her. The others copied them. Sonic destroyed the second pinger with a distant crash. The third pulse came from farther away and passed over the basin like a hand searching in the dark but touching nothing. Ren let the water slow. His legs nearly folded again. This time, Sonic returned in time to catch his elbow. Ren allowed it for 1 second, only one. Tails checked the scanner. They did not map us, but Eggman will know something interfered. Sonic looked at the old channels. Can we stay? Tails looked at Ren. Ren looked at the animals. Rest had lasted less than 5 minutes. Still, 5 minutes had mattered. Breathing had steadied. Fear had lowered. Tails had tied the bandage. The basin had given them one trick. Now they needed the next. Ren pointed to the channel, where water left the basin under a curtain of roots. Tails scanned it. There is a passage behind there. Narrow, wet, it may lead under the ridge. Sonic sighed. More crawling, great, love that for me. Ren gave him a tired look. Sonic lifted both hands. Going, going. Clover hopped down from the stone and waited by the root curtain. Ren followed. Behind them, the basin water settled smooth again, hiding every ripple it had used to lie. Chapter 33. Under Ridge Run. The passage under the ridge was colder than the basin. Water ran along one side, black and quick in the dark. The ceiling pressed low enough that Sonic had to crawl in places and complain under his breath where only Ren could hear. Tails moved better, smaller and careful, Scanner tucked against his chest. The animals went between them in a long, trembling line. Ren led from the water side. His feet knew where the stone was slick before his eyes found it. His hands found roots hidden under mud. Every few steps he paused, touched the current, and felt ahead. The passage bent twice. Then the water vanished under a slab. Ren stopped. The animals bumped softly behind him. Tails whispered, "Blockage." Ren crouched. The water did not stop. It dove, under stone, through a tight crack, then down. The air beyond tasted open, but the path ahead was sealed by fallen rock and packed clay. Sonic crawled up beside him. "Please tell me this is not a dead end." Ren put one hand on the slab. "Not dead. Difficult." A vibration moved through the passage behind them. Everyone froze. This one was not a pinger pulse. It had legs, many small legs, scratching on stone. Tails turned slowly. Crawlers found the basin trail. Sonic's eyes narrowed. How many? Too many for this tunnel. The scratching grew louder. Ren looked at the slab again. If he broke it badly, the roof could drop. If he waited, the crawlers would reach the animal line from behind. He pointed at Sonic, then back down the tunnel. Sonic shook his head. "You open the path, I hold them." Ren stared. Sonic stared back, bright and stubborn in the dark. "You are the only one who can feel the water through that rock. I am the one who can turn a narrow tunnel into a very bad place for machines." Tails swallowed. He is right. Ren hated democracy. But he turned to the slab. Sonic slipped past the animals toward the rear. He moved carefully, touching heads and shoulders with unusual gentleness as he passed. "Stay low, stay with Tails. Big ugly machines are about to have a bad day." Tails braced beside Ren. "Tell me what to hold." Ren tapped two roots, the clay seam and the lower stone. Tails understood faster now. He set two clamps into the roots and wedged a support rod under the seam. "You loosen the bottom, not the top. We make a crawl space, not a doorway." "Good, Fox." Ren pressed both hands to the stone and pulled water up from the crack beneath it. The water came reluctantly. It was trapped under pressure, squeezed through old earth. Ren shaped it thin and patient, letting it soften clay grain by grain. Behind him, the first crawler reached Sonic. Metal shrieked. Sonic laughed once. "Nope." A crash followed, then another. The animals flinched, but Clover held the front line steady. She stood near Ren's foot, ears flat, body shaking and refusing to move backward. Ren focused on the clay. Water first. Not force. The seam softened. Tails dug with a flat tool, moving mud away in silent scoops. The gap widened from a finger's width to a hand's width, then to a space an animal could squeeze through. Not Sonic. Not Tails. Not Ren. Yet. The rear fight moved closer. Sonic skidded backward into view, one hand on the wall, sparks flying past him as a crawler snapped metal jaws at his shoes. He kicked it into the ceiling. Another crawled over it. "Any time," Sonic called. Ren pulled harder. Pain burst through his shoulder. The water answered with a sudden surge, carving mud from under the slab. The stone dropped half an inch. Tails shoved the support rod deeper. Easy. Ren stopped. Breath, water, clay, root. Slow. He shifted the stream sideways, widening the gap instead of deepening it. The passage